let's record a soundbite that go to the end of this podcast. I'm gonna say like, oh, that was a good episode. And you're gonna say like, yeah, that was pretty flippin' great. And I'm gonna bleep out flippin'.
Yeah,
so like,
okay.
That was a good episode, Jared.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Jeremiah Wallander is a boss. No, literally, he's his own boss in his photography business under the Instagram handle Jared the Photographer. You can check out his work there, linked below. Jerry, welcome to the Backyard Barbecue Podcast.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here. I'm excited to dive into all the things that you added to the Salt DVD because I know it's something that you really love and get really excited about in a way that I really empathize with, like the way you get physically excited when you're into an idea. And you were really the person that I was able to talk to most about the DVD before the summer started. And really one of the first people where I got to see you doing something creatively that I really respected, and then got to talk you through it, like over the broad scope of creatives, like artists, musicians I look up to, like you to me, as I was a prospective SALT staff, I looked at you at a small scale like that, like this rock star video creator who did this awesome stuff. And I want to start with, was there someone that you looked up to like that as you were starting your path of becoming a photographer, or was it a very like organic kind of happenstance thing, or was it something that you really look up to someone else on SALT as you were starting that path?
In all honesty, not so much on SALT. I mean, I definitely, I would say I certainly looked up to Erica and Devin in a lot of ways, especially with their artistic abilities. I remember my second year on SALT, so it's the 2016 DVD, that was after the Rock On summer, and I still remember after watching that DVD and being like, that was awesome. I loved that. But I didn't ever think, even at that point, I didn't ever think, oh, I'm going to be a photographer for camp, which I ended up being next year. I would say, yeah, I looked up to Devin and Erica a lot, but mostly, like, it was what you said, it was organic. I think I saw what they did with the SALT DVD, and I saw, like, the potential that it could also have. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like knocking on them. I'm not, because they just had a different style than I did. But I like had this desire to bring in, like you described, this energy, this like funness, this comedy to it. And I had so many ideas for it. But then when Matthew asked me if I would be willing to actually be the camp photographer, that's when I was like, oh, this isn't just a, what do you call it, a dream, or this isn't just an idea, this is like reality now. And I actually still remember sitting in my MLC dorm room when Devin texted me, and she's like, just heard you are the photographer, fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji. And then the next text message that she sent me after that was, I cannot wait for you to make the SALT DVD. And I was like, yes, that was like the moment. So I would say there wasn't actually someone in particular. I mean, it just was more so that I like had this idea from like my cinema viewing and like my other forms of artistry that like made me be inspired to do this, something that felt like was reachable and tangible.
Trying to get specific, if you could pick out one thing when you watched that 2016 SALT DVD, which is a big SALT DVD, I hear a lot about how great that one was, and I have watched it. What was one thing that really stood out to you? I'm sure there were plenty of things, but...
It's the ending. The ending of that is Twinkling Lights, the song. Gosh, I can't remember the artist. I think if Devin watches this, she's going to slap me because I can't remember. Is it Annalise Emmerich? I think that's her name. And the ending song is just like, it's like one of those, the lyrics just totally fit, because it's all about these bunch of 20-somethings running barefoot in the night and like sitting around a campfire and talking about summer nights. And it was like the way the music felt at the end along with the lyrics, and is like, it's uncanny how well it fits. So the ending of that 2016 SALT DVD with that song, and just like all the shots and all the pictures that came out, like that really hit me. That is the thing that, like, there's so many things I love about that DVD, but that is the thing that, like, I think of when I think of that Salt DVD, the ending with Twinkling Lights.
You know, what's crazy is that even asking that question when you started describing it, my mind immediately went to like that moment for me on the 2019 DVD, because that I don't know if I can say it was that moment that made me want to make a Salt DVD, but like watching that night when we watched the 2019 DVD, everybody sitting in the dining hall. I had no plans of being a photographer, but it was certain that I was going to make a Salt DVD. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I literally started talking to, I thought Lauren and Meredith were going to be photographers, and I asked them, like, because I had spent the last half week of the summer working on the Camp CD, Oh Dear. So I said, like, can I just help you that last half week? Like, I know a lot of the work happens there. Like, I need to be doing this somehow. I'll figure it out with Matthew. But the song that stuck out to me like that, where just the shots just and the song just work together, was like the Stupid Deep acoustic segment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the moment when I realized how intentional that DVD, like, you were being intentional. You were taking these moments that we didn't even know the significance of, seeing the significance, and then showing us who we are,
Right.
like, married with the song, and that it just blew my mind. So know that you certainly turned it around and accomplished that on your own DVD as well.
Well, thank you. But I also do need to throw it to that was actually that specific segment was actually Esther's that she put together.
Really?
And yeah, so
Okay.
like, and I did help her with it because in fact, she asked me what song, and I did suggest like, oh, you should do Stupid Deep, and then she said, really? I was like, but do the acoustic version. I think the acoustic version fits. I remember the conversation we had in the office where I said, do the acoustic version of Stupid Deep. That's gonna fit more with the flow in this. And of course, like, we both were there when each other was making segments, but she was the one who did like the main part of that segment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
but no, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely more on that. 2019 DVD, I haven't watched it in a while, and when I say I haven't watched it in a while, I mean that I haven't watched it in the last month. So usually, usually that occurs frequently. But how long do you spend, as someone who likes, like, I know that you really appreciate cinema probably the most of the four photographers, or I would say Devin, if I'm looking at Devin, Erica, and you probably would stand out as this person loves movies and cinema. I mean, you do your Facebook reviews, and you're really into that. Music is...
I'm wearing a cinema shirt right now.
Really?
I just realized. It's a director. Yeah, one of my favorite directors.
Well, and you're
anyway,
actually
keep going.
Spider-Man,
Yeah.
so...
Oh, yeah.
Which director is it? Is it Quentin Tarantino?
No, it's Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, okay.
He did, like Sicario and Arrival, movies like that.
I love Arrival. I was hoping you would say Tarantino, because then I could tie it into... music is huge in his films, and like the needle drop and the way he uses that.
Right.
So, I mean, the needle drop is obviously something that really matters to you in the Salt DVD too. Like when that song hits and you know what's about to happen, like the at the start of the 2019 DVD. How long do you spend in conversation with the other photographer deciding what songs to pick? Or if you're choosing your own songs, how long do you deliberate over that?
I think, well, let's see. Choosing songs, because our process always was, with Devin and with Esther, it was, all right, let's figure out what segments we want. So then we would go through and we'd pick out what segments we want, what segments we think we don't need or maybe could be extra. And then after that, we're like, once we decided, we're like, okay, so what segment song is going to fit here the best? And then I remember one time I literally just pulled out my phone and we were scrolling through my Apple Music and it was like, no, not that. And then I was like, oh, that would work. In fact, it was actually Ray Charles by Chitty Bang for the campfire segment. That was a moment where it's just like, I need an upbeat, fun song. And it was just Esther and I sitting there, she's scrolling on her phone just listening. I'm like scrolling through my music and playing. It was like, that's the one. So I think more so it's like, sometimes you have a certain song in mind for a segment and you already know, and then I would say, hey, how about this? And she would be like, perfect, you know, or like, or you should try a different one. Or other times there would be like some searching to do. So Chitty Bang, Ray Charles, that was an example of, you know, just scrolling, trying to find a good one. What would that be? 2017 DVD. That was Eyewitness News Summer. The intro I knew I wanted that to be Hoka Hey, but then Ropes Training was everybody says, boy, don't go any higher. Bah, bah, I can do anything. And that was like, that song was just me scrolling on my phone trying to look for a good song. I was like, that's perfect. So I'd say there never is a consistent process to picking a song for a segment, because sometimes I had something in mind and sometimes I just needed to find something. But I think most of the time it always ended up meshing well. But then the 2019 DVD ending, which is in the 2017 DVD ending, which has a Judah and the Lion song at the ending, and then the 2019 DVD ending has Josh Garrels.
Yeah, it's Josh Garrels. I don't remember what song it is, but that was a great one as far as the vibe of it.
And that was, so the Judah and the Lion song from 2017 and the Josh Garrels song from 2019 were both like planned as being the ending.
It's very fun to me to hear now. I would say if I had to guess, and this year's DVD, which we'll talk about briefly, a favorite song would be Kids. Like, I hear that a lot as like people's favorite track off the DVD, which is Andy Mineo and Words Played. So just remembering back to Lauren and I in like December, just jamming out to that song, like, this is perfect. and then see it come to life in the DVD is absolutely huge. You and Esther not only added energy, and I'm talking about the 2019 DVD now, because I know that between the 2018 and 19, you'd probably say there's more of an emotional kind of journey in that DVD. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
What inspired you to do that? Like, what was your kind of mentality there?
Well, the thing is so 2017 with Devin, I felt like, to me, after I did it and after we put it together, it was like, oh, that was perfect. We had Devin's artistry, my energy. I did all like the fun segments except the end. Like, I also did the ending of that DVD, and like that was perfect. So then it felt like 2018. It was like Esther and I were like, we really want to hit this artistry, and that's fine. And I do think that 2018 is definitely very artistic, especially when I think of the Salt Retreat. The Salt Retreat segment of that DVD is extremely artistic, and in all honesty, probably the most artistic Salt Retreat segment that's been on. And that's fine and that's good, but in all honesty, after we put it together, I loved it. But I mean, I have to say I did not love. That's my least favorite DVD I made.
Really?
And I think Esther would agree too. Now there is something to it with that was also a ton of first years were on that year, and it was actually really difficult to get a lot of them to do fun things for the DVD. And again, this isn't me knocking them. They didn't know what it was, because there were so many first years that year. So we were like trying to get footage of so many of these first years trying to do fun things, and they just, they didn't know. They didn't know that there was going to be put together in this cool thing. Even after we explained it to them, they didn't understand the significance of it. So that DVD also was difficult because Esther and I were like, we got to fill this up with something. And we would make announcements at meetings. But again, they just didn't understand. So like a lot of the DVD is just like Esther and I goofing around, because we needed to fill it up with stuff. And again, it's fun and interesting, but like it's not my favorite because I feel like there's so much artistry to it, and there's a lot of Esther and I, but not a ton of the whole staff having memories. There's a ton of the whole staff in an artistic way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But not a ton of the whole staff. Yeah, not a ton of the whole staff like in the moment, because again, when we would bring the camera over, they just would like stop because they didn't know. And it's funny because Lauren actually came up to me during training week this year and she says, I get what you mean now, because she said how she was frustrated with some people would just like stop because the camera was in their face. And I was like, yeah, that's what that summer when all of them were first years was it was like they just would stop because they didn't know what was going on. And then obviously the next year it was a lot easier because they knew. And I think that's also what translated into how the 2019 DVD went, was now all these first years who are now second years, they understand what the DVD is now. Now they're jumping in front of the camera, and I have to be like, get out of the way! I'm filming Grace Bain doing something, and Luke and Cameron are trying to jump in, which wasn't a thing the year before, you know, because again, then they knew what the Salt DVD was. So I think part of the organic memory feel of 2019 came from the staff as well, understanding what the DVD was and then being willing to be in front of the camera during those memories, as opposed to the year before, whereas we just had to create these memories from a distance. You get what I mean?
I totally get what you mean.
Instead of like being close up in on them. So I feel like that's why 2019 feels more emotional, because we were allowed proximity to the memories.
Oh, yeah, I totally see what you mean. And one of the things I talked about with Devin, and she pointed out, is that she's making these videos of her year, and she is filming Greg, and Greg's like, why are we filming now? And she's like, you don't understand, like, I'm making this thing. You'll like it at the end. You just don't get it now. And I think an important role of a videographer specifically, or a filmmaker, is like you play the role of the person who knows, who gets what's actually going on. Mm-hmm. And maybe those people won't understand it until the very end of the summer, but you can't explain it to them now. You just have to know, and they won't know. What are some ways that you what are some ways you overcome that in the short term, when someone that you're like, I'm sure it happens now when you're doing couples photos or things at weddings, when people don't understand what they're supposed to be doing when there's a camera in front of them?
Oh, I think one of my go-to lines that I always tell like couples, like during a wedding shoot or an engagement shoot, like if they're like, huh? Like I'm just like, it feels weird, but like, trust me, it looks good. And that's usually when they relax up, when they're like, oh, okay, then I will put my arm here, which I normally wouldn't, but it's a pose. So, and then again, like, going back to 2018, I still remember Esther and I were frustrated because we would explain to them what this was. But again, like you said, they didn't know. And so no matter how much you explained, they didn't understand. So then once they saw it, that set up 2019 to just be, heck yeah, like I want to be in this. I want to be in this DVD.
What about with video? Because I see how that would work with photos if you need someone to look a certain way. But with video, like you described, do you think you have figured out a way to overcome that, or get someone to not just look, like put your arm there, but just like feel relaxed? You're not doing wedding videos, are you? It's photography.
No. Yeah, I would say the bulk of my videography has always been at camp, so I'm not going to be able to put this into terms of outside of camp. So whoever's listening to this is the only videography advice I can be is inside the realm of camp. But I think, for instance, the 2018 DVD, what did Esther and I try doing to create some more moments with that video where people can relax and be comfortable in front of it, was the jackbutt segment. Because it was just like, we need these people to do something, because they won't do fun things in front of the camera. So then we give them something fun to do, like Elisha, just hide underneath the leaves and then like come out, or like Mindy and someone else like take these two balls and run into each other, you know, like doing mostly harmless things. But I think it's creating an opportunity for people to be goofy in front of the camera, like we did with Jackbutt, where we literally told them, do this, and then they just did it, and then we were able to get something out of it. And then in that way we were able to have a fun segment of these people, instead of like thinking these people are going to organically be funny in front of the camera. Again, that's the biggest example I can think of is Jackbutt, but otherwise I don't have too much advice around that.
But I see that a lot of it, my perception was that a lot of it is not what you say. It's not this catchphrase that you can give to someone that they'll automatically be comfortable. It's just being okay with being kind of out in the limb and goofy and not completely organized as a videographer. Like you just got to get in there. Like it's gonna feel awkward for you because it feels awkward for them. But
Right.
it takes a lot of footage and a lot of running around.
Yeah, you're right. It's commitment. It's like going off a ramp on a skateboard or diving into water. Like you just need to like commit to it, cuz otherwise, like with videography, I think it's like that, whereas, on a skateboard you might fall backwards if you don't commit to the jump off a ramp. Like you might hurt yourself if you don't commit to the dive when you're going into water. Like with videography, especially at camp, trying to catch that moment, like you're gonna miss it and you might end up with some real dumb footage if you don't commit to getting in there inside of the action.
Yeah. So you get the job, you're working at camp, you're doing photography, and then what happens that makes you think, I might want to get some clients here and start making money with this?
Well, it mostly actually started at MLC when there were two people at MLC who actually kind of got me into the photography gig. It was Shelby Pitt, and I'm shooting her wedding actually this summer, and John Whitty, who's at Luther on Alaska.
Yep.
And he was suggested to the boss, Bill Peckrell, who actually was Matthew's principal growing up, which is crazy. But Bill Peckrell at MLC, John told Bill, "Hey, I know a guy who I know is artistic and could be part of our team." So then I got an email saying, "Would you want to come in for an interview? We're hiring." I said, "Sure, that would be great." Did I know much about cameras? I knew the basics. I knew aperture and shutter speed and ISO. Like I knew the very basics.
Mm-hmm.
But then going in, I like explained I had to show some of my work that I've done in the past, and it was mostly on my phone or with like a real like junky camera. And then I ended up getting hired onto the team. And then at MLC, I started doing, sports photography and play photography. And then that's when people are like, "Oh, Jerry's a photographer. Everyone at MLC is getting married." So they're like, "We need a wedding photographer. Can you shoot it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, and I explained to them, like, you'll only be my first wedding or my second wedding, and they're like, "Oh, we've seen what you can do. We just need at least like 3 good ones." And I was like, you know what? When a couple tells me they only need at least 3 good ones, that puts a lot of pressure off of me.
Yeah,
as a beginning photographer. I was like, I can get 3 really good photos, and both those weddings ended up going well, which then I get hired on at camp after Matthew finds out that I'm part of the photography team at MLC. He says, "Well, how about you be photographer this summer?" And I was like, holy cow, I haven't even thought about that yet, because I was still thinking I was going to be the Pee-wee leader. Mm-hmm. And then he said, "No, like how about you like do this, because Erica was leaving and Devin needed another person." So then I was like, "All right, yeah, I'll do it." And then from there, it was, in all honesty, it was fasten your seatbelts and don't look back. I just started getting clients left and right, mostly through MLC, but now especially this past 12-month calendar year has been where I've had a lot of strangers reaching out to me. That's mostly been through promoting through Instagram and Facebook. I don't have a website because, again, this isn't necessarily what I want to do for the rest of my life, but it's great for right now. And that was how it began. It was literally one girl asked me to shoot her wedding, and I said, "Sure." And she said, "All we need is 3 good ones." And I'm like, "Fine." And then from there on is just, I started posting it. People are like, "Oh, Jerry can do this. How about you do ours?" And that just went and hasn't stopped since.
If you can be good at what you do, I think that MLC is just prime for getting weddings.
Oh, amen, dude. Amen.
Yeah, it's cool to hear that it was kind of a happenstance thing with you, that you didn't really decide to do photography? It almost kind of decided to walk into your life, and then you said, all right, going with this. So when you say you don't want to do it for the rest of your life, what do you mean by that?
Like, I was saying mostly I don't want to do, like, weddings for the rest of my life because, again, don't get me wrong, I love it, but it is, and I love, and I love taking photos of it, but again, it's, especially now that I'm, like, preaching on Sundays, and I'm like, ugh, that is my whole Saturday, and the money's nice, but I don't get to relax. So I think I definitely still want to do family shoots. I definitely still want to do engagement shoots. But if people, when I'm a pastor and people ask me like, hey, can you shoot my wedding? It's going to be like, I don't do that anymore. Because I need energy on Sunday.
So because you have that passion for being a pastor and you can have 100% passion in both things.
Right.
What role does creativity play in your life? Like, let's say, like, examining what happened before you were a photographer, or what would happen if you stopped taking pictures. Like, would there be a hole there? Do you have this, like, a drive to create something in your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely, and whether it's through photos, or through, when I write my sermons, especially through storytelling, I think the drive for my creativity doesn't have to always be through the lens of a camera. I think the drive through my creativity is, as you know, I like making people laugh. Yeah. So like when I'm telling jokes, when I'm being goofy, doing improv, that's where I feel like I can be creative, where I've created this character. I feel creative when I write a story, In all honesty, I've talked to so many people, and I really think, like, I would love to just someday, as a side gig, just write novels. Gosh, I would love that. I wish I had time. I don't have time right now, and maybe someday I'll be able to have time. I would love to write novels. I love watching movies and listening to music where I take the music from a different movie and put it in my mind as to what a scene would look like. So for instance, the Christopher Nolan movie that just came out, Tenet. Mm-hmm. The opening scene has one of my favorite soundtracks ever because it's just this drive. And then, like, I will listen to the soundtrack, and then I will take the music and take the scene from the movie out of my head, like the picture, and put in my own picture of what's happening that may not have anything to do with that movie. Do you get what I mean?
Wow, yeah. And why do you do that?
And, like, to pass time in the car.
Really?
I do this all the time. Or, like, I always take songs and how would they fit into movies? This is probably even be a better example. There's a song from another one of my favorite movies, The Social Network.
Okay.
And I don't know if you see it, so it's about, it's a drama about the creation of Facebook, but there's a song on the soundtrack, and the soundtrack actually won the Oscar for Best Soundtrack, and I love it. And it's called, there's two of my favorite songs on that soundtrack by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who were 9 Inch Nails, the guys of 9 Inch Nails, and now they do movie scores, and they've already won, I think, 2 Oscars. Whoa. At least at minimum 1, but 2 of them are A Familiar Taste and Magnetic. Those 2 songs off of that soundtrack, if you look at the scenes, the first scene is them coming up with a formula for how to create this website. And the music that's going, you wouldn't think that. The second scene is them having a meeting with an executive, but it doesn't sound like music that a person would have, or a person would put into a scene where someone's meeting with an executive. They sound like bank heist music.
Really?
Yeah, so it's so cool to me. So when I listen to those movie soundtracks, I take the scene out of my head, the picture, and put in my own scene for what I think fits with that music. So when I take, like, The Social Network soundtrack, for instance, it's always like, this sounds like a bank heist soundtrack. But I mean, again, that's what makes it cool. Is it's like it has nothing to do with bank heists. It's about the creation of Facebook. It just shows how creative that is. So I think again, going back, taking a couple steps back, that's where a lot of my creativity comes from. Is just me inside of my own brain,
Yep.
just inserting things, taking things out. And again, I think that's something that you can empathize with as well. I think we're very the same in our creativity for how we picture things, and how things don't always have to have a certain set of rules. We can take it outside of the rules.
How long have you been doing that kind of thing? Like, did you used to do that when you were really young, or?
Oh yeah, when I
never
was
heard of
super
this.
young. Yeah, I think of the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. I remember doing like I want to create my own action movie, and this would be the soundtrack that I would use, but like not the scenes from that movie. I'd have my own scenes with that soundtrack.
Has your desire to create an action movie changed over the years?
Yeah, because I realize how much work filmmaking is, like big budget filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds so painful to me.
And
That
does
I
it
have no
does it get you inspired to do that exactly?
And I mean, like growing up, I always wanted to be. It was always I want to be a I want to be a pastor or a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I learned more about becoming a filmmaker, I was like, ugh, that sounds horrible. You know, especially like having a studio controlling my creativity. Wow, would I hate that. I could not stand that. I wouldn't be able to handle that. But the more I learned about being a pastor, I was like, that sounds more up my alley. So again, they're two completely different things, but especially it was when I learned about like how studios control filmmaking, and how it's, you can't just come in with your idea and say, this is the movie I want to make. Most studios will just be like, no. And what could I do with that? I wouldn't I wouldn't have liked that. I would have hated that, and in all honesty probably hated my life. So now I like being my own boss with my creativity, and not have a studio be over me and telling me what I can and can't do.
Did you ever make small attempts at filmmaking or make little movies when you were younger?
Yeah, I did all the time. I remember my parents getting me a small camera, and I would like literally I would take the camera, and I would make a movie where I was the main actor, but also the cinematographer holding the camera. And I remember I had to be like 10 or 11 years old. I would have two different characters, and I wouldn't even like film just the lines of one character and then film the lines of another character. I would film the lines of one character, switch outfits, then film the lines of another, switch outfits, then film, because I was like a decade old. I didn't know, and like that's what I thought I had to do. I just would switch back and forth. And yeah, I would just put videos together, oftentimes with music like from the All American Rejects or Linkin Park, stuff like that. I would use LimeWire, download like pirated music off
nice.
of LimeWire, and then throw that into my videos. I remember the first YouTube video I ever put up, which would have been in 2008 or 2009. I put up my first YouTube video, which doesn't exist anymore. I deleted the page because it was all like boring stuff. But it was a video of a Wii bowling tutorial and how to score a 300 in Wii bowling.
That
but
is
like
epic.
but I didn't like screen record the TV, I took my camera and put it in front of the TV because again, I was how old was I? I was 11, 12 years old in 2008, and I didn't know any of that type of stuff. I just was like, oh, this is what we're going to do, and I remember it got like 700, 800 views. And I was like 12 years old. Again, that was a big deal back then. But yeah, that was kind of where it started. And I don't know, my passion for camera work has, gone up exponentially since then. Also at FVL, when I was in high school, there's a big thing there called Frolic. and that's like the
Right.
talent show where they also announce the winners of Homecoming Queen or Prom King, that type of stuff. But there's always MCs. In my senior year, I was the MC, one of the MCs for it with my best friend Justice, and we had to create videos for it. And we actually asked my brother, who is a filmmaker, to help us make it. And that was another turning point for me, watching my brother put that together. And I would tell him the music that I wanted in there. Like, I want this song by Motley Crue in, and I want the Indiana Jones theme here. I want the Mission Impossible theme here. And then I want a Little Less Conversation by Elvis right here. Like, I remember telling him those things and then watching him put that together. That was another stepping point in me into, like, seeing that type of filmmaking and being like, that is so fun. And then again, going back, I was able to bring that into the Salt DVD.
Yeah, for sure. That really resonates with me whenever I hear someone doing that kind of thing as a kid, because it's just really a type. Like, there's people who wouldn't understand why you'd do that, and there's people who are like, yeah, I made a whole bunch of videos when I was 10, and for me it was, I got this little waterproof camera. I wanted it to be waterproof for some reason. I got fixated on like things that I needed to make something when I was younger. I guess I still do, like a little piece of gear, like, oh, I need this for this reason, I know what I need. And for me it was like I needed a waterproof camera, and I needed a time-lapse camera. So I got this time-lapse camera that looked like a trail cam, so it was like this big, and you just like set it up in your room, and it could take like, I would do it for a month, and I would love that. And then the little waterproof camera I'd use to make all sorts of videos with my dog, with my brother. And I would always try to see if I could do, instead of the persuasive essays or whatever at school, I would always ask, can I do a video instead? And it was often that the answer would be yes.
Yeah.
And I really think that educators should allow that more often, personally. Because, like, how do you communicate today? Like, if you wanted to express an idea to the world, you could write about it. But if you put a video out, like, if you're on TikTok, like, you're probably going to reach more people first. It's like my perception of it. But
oh, I agree. That's funny that you say that about high school. There was a time in high school where it was for Spanish class my sophomore year. You had to, like, do some sort of presentation in Spanish, and I was like, hey, can I do it as a video?
Mm-hmm.
And I did how to make a pizza as in Spanish, and I did a video, but I, like, dressed up as Michael Myers from Friday the 13th, making
Why?
this pizza. I don't know, man. And then like it got to the point where it was like I set down the pizza, and then it was like the next, I lost all my Spanish, but like the next step was cut the pizza, and it like appeared as Michael Myers with a knife and just started stabbing it. And like I remember my whole class was just dying laughing at this video, and I was the only person that made a video. So it's funny to me when you say like your persuasive essay, you made videos, because I did the same thing. It's crazy.
my cinematic masterpiece was Manly Stanley, and it was about a banana with a face on it that like murdered its father. The climax of his marriage. I think it's on Facebook somewhere. But another classic would be Cameron did the same thing. He had his video about exercise. Have you seen his physical activity video on Facebook?
Oh yes.
Gets
That's
shared
old,
every
isn't
year.
it?
Physical activity is awesome. Yeah, it's pretty old. That was recorded on, I think that was on tape. Because my dad had this like camera that he used for home videos, and then would like kind of like digitize it and make our home videos.
Oh, yeah,
honestly, I think that our home videos are a huge inspiration to me, because my dad made so many home videos, or at least it seems like it. It probably wasn't like that big of a deal, but when you do it for their entire childhood, you have a lot of footage, and seeing like the way videos age matters so much to me, and it fascinates me.
Mm-hmm.
And how much over time, like if you like being able to be filming something in the present and know how it's going to feel in 2 months versus how it is right now, it's something you get a glimpse of in the Salt DVD. And to me, what I like seeing, like talking to you and Devin, and then talking to Erica soon, is seeing where like you have that information now, you see this thing that not everybody in this world, in this life, gets to see. Like, what do you do with that? Do you understand what I'm saying with like the?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you've gained something in your perspective from getting the opportunity to make the DVD?
Oh, in all honesty, that this might sound selfish, but I feel like I learned most about myself than about other people. I don't know how many would agree with that, but I feel like when I make a video and I'm putting it together, I learn more about my process and the way I do things and my organizational skills and my organizational calamities. I don't know. Am I answering your question? Does that make sense?
So
I feel like I'm learning. I feel like I learn more about myself than anyone else when I'm putting together a video, like a home video like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of that involved in filmmaking, of course, and on a small scale, Assault DVD, it's a massive part of it. How are you going to categorize and label all of this footage and arrange it in the right way? And on top of that, your computer is slow, and how are you going to manage all this footage with limited amount of time? And someday you'll have lots of members in your congregation.
Talking about the computer being slow, I can still remember I was putting together a segment of the Salt DVD and I hadn't hit save in like 15 minutes, and like I had gotten far and really far. I was putting all this stuff together and then it just crashed. And I remember sitting in there and just crying. And then I was like, I'm going to bed. I'm redoing this tomorrow,
Oh,
and
my goodness.
then I got back and like I realized like, oh, it didn't even save as much as I thought it saved. So again, that was a whole nother process with the Salt DVD. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. It's probably only exciting to me, but like talking about the way you take organized footage over the summer, that stuff like gets me really excited.
Oh, yeah?
So much of what I did when I came in for ropes training this year, which did not exist, it was just a few of us volunteering for a week, was just, well, first of all, blowing up the office and organizing it, and then making the folders. Because when something goes wrong, like you gotta know where stuff is. And a big moment for me was I accidentally took all of the footage from all of the growths from the summer out of the Salt DVD project in the last 5 days of the summer. So like every single clip in the Salt DVD that was in the growth segment, which is, and another segments too that had footage from growth, was just gone. 5 days left in the summer. So then it was just individually finding everything that belonged to growth, dragging it back in. But it's that moment. It's like you can't, like, as much as you want to organize the process of art, I'm sure that, do you feel that way? Like you want to organize?
Yeah, certainly. But then it just always ends up becoming a mess anyway, so
does.
sometimes I just let it be a mess.
Yeah, I put this on the wall the first day of the summer. No, right before the summer started, because I was so trying to organize the file structuring and get the session ready, and I wanted to know what page Lauren was on and how we're gonna structure our days, and I just had this thought and I wrote it out and put it on the wall. Like, you can't ever fully organize good art. Like, it has to be reworked, changed, shaped, and you have to love it. And that's it played out over the summer. Like, in that moment, it takes the love of what you're making. That's it. Like, it's you and that project, and if you don't love it enough, you could give up.
Right.
Crazy about what's really impactful about getting the job of photographer is that you can't just decide not to make the Salt DVD, well, anymore. Maybe there was a point in which you could say, yeah, not this year, but like, you have to make a fantastic Salt DVD.
Yeah. It's a highlight. It's a highlight. Yeah.
So most of the time when you're starting being a photographer, you don't get told you have to make a 90-minute video to capture 3 months of people's lives. And I think that if we're talking about the impact and how this DVD kind of can affect our lives as photographers, I think that's a big part of it. Because it just doesn't happen that often that you start by this massive project and then work into other things and then like add that into the rest of your life. But we had that opportunity. Do you think that you will have a big project creatively coming up or ever in your life? Do you have a desire to make something big?
I mean, I always have a desire. Growing up, I always wanted to make a a Jesus movie that's not corny and well acted and actually uses Middle Eastern people instead of white people.
Yeah.
like that was always. And do I think that dream is dead? I actually don't. I don't think that dream is dead yet. I think there is still a chance someday. I don't know. I think me writing a sermon every week is kind of a big project. But like artistically in the area of photography or videography, I guess I can't say right now if there will be something like that. You know, like the Salt DVD where I'm looking forward to this for a year and a year and a year.
Yeah. And at this point, Jerry's memory card had to go for lunch break. Out of common decency, we let him go and switch to video chat. We know you would have done the same. We missed a bit of dialogue, but if you listen to what Jerry says here, you should be able to follow. Okay, so we were just talking about Jerry's spiritual awakening that just occurred as he realizes there's a part of him they never realized was there. What do you mean by that?
Like, I didn't realize that. I think oftentimes I do make a conscious effort of like I want to be a good public speaker, so I'm going to work at this. Like, I'm going to work really hard at this. Like, I want to be a good drummer, so I'm going to work really hard at this. If I want to be good at something, I just like make a decision like, this is me now. But when you say like, when you talk to me about my childhood and you say how like, it seems like you never made a decision, it just was a part of you, that like, that like hit me. And I was like, holy cow, he's right. Like, that's very wise, Elliot, because I that was definitely something where I never like, I just want to be artistic. I want to be like really artsy and creative. Like that wasn't a conscious thought I had. Like I want to be good at soccer is the conscious thought that I had. I just was artistic. So I appreciate that you opened that up to me.
I can see that there's some overlap though in the things that you maybe made a more of a conscious effort to as well, because of the way that like you do a devotion at camp. Like you were the first person I saw like walking around the bowl campfire at camp, preparing for your devotion, like acting things out and just like really getting into it. And obviously you did a story type of devotion that like that's a part of like the way you communicate. You probably don't, like you don't do it every time that you preach, but nobody asks you when you're writing a sermon to do it a certain way. There's a blank page. There's just a piece of scripture there. You have to tap into that part of yourself that just passively dreams about these stories and these ways of communicating.
Right. That's actually my preaching professor. Actually, after I gave my sermon last year, because we had to write one sermon each semester, and like I presented it to the class, he just said like, that is you. Like the fact that you open up with a story and do that, and how you get into it and how animated your face is with all that, that's great. Because, and he just said, that is you, that's authentically you. If another guy tried doing that, it'd be awkward and weird, and the congregation would be like, what's this guy doing? But that was the big thing, was being authentically yourself in the pulpit and being authentically yourself when you're presenting God's word. And so, yeah, that's definitely a thing, is I always use stories because I'm just a storyteller. I love telling stories.
I want to share with you our friend Luke, friend of you, friend of me, Luke Schultz, had a similar thing, and maybe this will help you fully realize just how real this kind of thing is. Like, I was talking to Luke for 2 hours one day. We went to Lola's in New Ulm back when MLC was still open. Rip. We're all online now. But he kind of, in passing, mentioned how he's kind of wanted to write a children's book, had thought about writing a children's book. And what I'm realizing is that so many people have a thing like that just kind of comes naturally. Like, I've thought about doing a children's book. Who thinks about that? Like, you don't realize, Luke, nobody else, like, figurative, like somebody else does, obviously, but nobody else in practice is thinking like that, like you are. Nobody has that thing inside them. And once he realized that and started getting excited about it, for him, it's like he's not as sure. Like, he doesn't have that I want to be a pastor thing of, like, you've decided this and you act like have a huge passion for it. He wants to be a teacher, but he has still some back and forth in his head about it. But if you can find that thing that genuinely, like, you just have a childlike enthusiasm for, and then decide to act on it, like you said, that a lot of things in your life, the drumming, the public speaking, I'm going to turn it into one of those things. I'm going to self-define, like, I am now an author. Why? Because something inside me wants to be an author, so I'm just going to do it. Have you, I don't know, what do you think about that? Have you ever considered that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's so funny that you say that about Luke, because I can totally picture Luke doing that. But
Right.
you're right. Like, that's not something that everyone thinks about. Like you said, that takes a special person to have that creativity inside of them, and that desire and that love, where it's not work. It's like they feel fulfilled from it. They feel built up from it. Yeah.
Jonas was talking about doing a blog, and I was doing it. Like, he hasn't made it public yet because he wants to get some more content on it, but Jonas Durr is making this blog called The Dashing Galoot, where he talks about historical figures and how dashing they were, and gives them a score on whether they were dashing or not. And then I keep getting these questionnaires from him in my email, because I'm on his list, about, like, how dashing are you? Take this quiz to find out. And man, I'm just getting fired up about seeing my friends actually want something, and then not just diminishing it, like, well, that's not a real thing. Like, what are you talking about? It's not a real thing. Like, YouTube exists, the internet exists. Make it. You're 19.
Oh my gosh, I'm right there with you. I've never been one of those people who like when someone says, like, they have a dream or they have an opportunity or something like that, it's not just like, that's kind of dumb, or like I often see like, and I've seen it before, where someone's talking about something they're passionate about, maybe it's not even artistic, and someone else, like, or like that person starts apologizing over and over again for that, like, oh, I'm sorry I'm talking about this so much. I'm like, why are you apologizing to me about this? But obviously it's because someone in the past has told them that they're annoying about it, where it's like, you don't have to feel that way around me. I like, if you want to tell me about your passions, tell me about your passions. Like, I'm not going to downplay them. We are in an age and a culture where, like, I don't know, maybe you can call it the YOLO age, you only live once, but it's true. Like, you have one life. Why? And like, as you grow up, you start to realize, like, how totally okay it is to chase your dreams and to go after artistic things. It's fine, because in the end, what does this life matter, really? I think one of my favorite quotes is, I actually just recently got a shirt with it on, is Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings, in the book and in the movie. And I think the movie actually presents this quote better than the book does, is Gandalf saying to Frodo, all we have to do is decide what to do with the time that's given us. Like, decide. God has given you time, so now decide what to do with that time.
Period. Yeah. And for me right now, I got a subscriber yesterday on YouTube, and for me it was like, I just had always this thing. Of course, if I could live off of a YouTube income, I would do it. But I'm realizing that not everybody thinks like that way, I guess, or it doesn't matter to everyone, is surprising to me. It's one of those things that's just very natural to me to want to, like, make original content. But I know it's pure because one subscriber, I'm like, let's go. This is fantastic. Like somebody saw this thing. You
and
make this thing.
Bringing it back to the Salt DVD, like we've been talking about, is it's like, part of our job description is not, make a 90-minute, 2-hour video encompassing the summer. Like we still
Yeah.
get paid the same amount if
Yep.
we didn't do that. And the fact that like the whole world is not going to see this. In fact, probably, okay, let's include some people's parents. Let's say less than 80 people are going to watch this video, probably in history.
Yeah.
But the fact that before I present this, I am sweating and my heart is beating so fast and I am bouncing my leg so bad because I'm so excited for these 30 people to watch this video, which is going to be like the max, less than 80. It's going to less than 80 people altogether. Like probably, let's say 50, like 50 people in the world are going to watch this video in all of history. And so, it's that. And you feel that, and it sounds like Luke feels the same way about his book. It's like, I don't care how many people see this. I'm just so excited that one person gets to see this.
Yeah. And two things going off of that. One is, and it helps people. Like, it massively inspires people. Like, not only is it just purely exciting for you to make that DVD, but the amount of people who come to camp because they've seen that, or like start working on SALT especially because they've seen that video, or see it, like the 2019 DVD so helped me get through my first year of college, like my first semester. Like I'd watch that thing, that when I first watched it an hour, like not an hour, a month and a half into the school year, it just was this huge feeling of I'm doing the right thing, I'm okay, like this is all right. So much is uncertain now, but that is certain. I know that was a good thing I did this summer, and that there's truth there, so I'm going to keep finding that truth in other places. And the other thing that that really stands out to me is that, like you say you would get paid the same amount if you didn't make the DVD. That's very true. Of course, at this point, there's a lot of pressure in it, but that thing, like, what if it didn't exist and we just did camp? Like, camp would still be great, but that huge thing wouldn't exist. Like, look at your life like that. Like, there's this massive thing that could be there, and it's not. And why? Like, maybe you're not looking for it, or maybe you've just decided that. I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about, like, in general, like anybody creative. There's no end to the amount of ways you can be inspiring and bringing joy into people's lives, into your own life, and being fulfilled. There is no end, like, to the ways in your day that you can spend making stuff that's just happy and wonderful. That's what I've been taught by the DVD just this summer. There's this part of you. There's two things that phenomena. Is it phenomena? Plural, phenomenon?
I think it's phenomena. Dude, now I'm gonna sound so stupid. Is phenomena plural and phenomenon is singular?
I'm Googling it right now.
Yeah, look it up right now. Sorry to whoever's listening to this. Big dum-dums.
Plural is phenomena. Okay, two phenomena that occur whenever, like, there's a shift of photographers, and I've already noticed it, like, talking to other, like, people who have witnessed this, and also, like, talking to Devin and now talking to you. It seems like every time a photographer enters a position, they're like, but now we're gonna do this, and every time they leave, they're like, I don't know, we'll see how they do. Like, there's always that energy. With when you started the SALT DVD, obviously we just talked about how you had all these ideas, and then when you leave what was it like for you when you left that position?
It was, dude, this past summer was just awesome in the sense that I just don't get me wrong, I loved being a photographer at camp. I really did. It was awesome, but just being able to, like, step back and not be worried about those things and just be able to, like, just be able to, because I would just get so into the like, I need to go get this shot, I need to go do that, I need to go do this, I need to be in here at evening game, I need to do this during song period, yada yada yada. There was always so many things that I was on top of when I was photographer, that this summer I got to realize, holy cow, the amount that I missed because I was just living through my lens.
Mm.
And I think I was just so focused on, especially the Salt DVD, in all honesty, I'll say that, like, that was my favorite thing to do at camp. Like, but I was so focused on making the Salt DVD and so focused on getting the shots that, like, I was like wearing blinders, you know? I felt like I was missing so many things that, like, you know, people would be like, let's go back and hang out. And it's like, nope, I got to go to the office because I got to go take care of this. And I don't know if the computer's going to work. And I need to make sure that, like, everything is all set. And this summer, it just was like, I don't have to go back to the office. And that's okay, because now I just get to live and be with my friends. And I don't want to, that's not me saying your life is horrible. I don't want to say that to you, because, like, you
No, I
love
know.
that. You love doing that. But it was like, again, it was, especially after the third summer, I was like, this is just, I'm exhausted. I am so exhausted. And this past summer was just a reality check for me, where I was like, I got to lead devotions. I got to go play the evening game. I got to just, like, plan out my campfire character. And I didn't have to worry about my camera. I just got to leave it behind. And that was honestly kind of emancipating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it always feel like that this summer?
Like
Did you ever
feeling
feel the
free.
opposite?
I feel like the 3 summers I just got a buffet of that. Do you get what I mean? Like, I got my fill that I didn't need anymore. Not like to the fill. So if I can put it in a metaphor, it's like I had a buffet and I'm filled up and satisfied. That I didn't feel like there was anything else I wanted to do, because I feel like all the things that I ever wanted to do in a Salt DVD, I did.
Mm-hmm.
They're all the things that I ever wanted to do when making camper DVDs, like, I did. All the things that, you know, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, so there was no new goal for me. So it was probably a good time for me to just be out of it and enjoy camp outside of my camera. This past summer just felt so freeing to me, because I just was able to observe with my eyes and not through a 24 millimeter lens.
What if you hadn't done that? Do you think that there's a chance that you might have even gotten sick of doing this job if there's, like, nothing more to learn? Like, that's why you said you don't want to do it with the rest of your life.
Yeah, in all honesty, I do think if I was photographer this summer at camp, I would have been done. And that's just me being honest.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't love it. I did love it. It's just, I think I'm a guy who needs to take things in doses.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I had my dose. So now then I was satisfied, yeah.
Yeah. But my guess is that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, looking forward to your career now, you're not looking forward to being a pastor and thinking, I bet I could do that for 20 years. It's probably more like, oh yeah, give me a lifetime of this stuff.
Oh yeah, that is for sure. I hope to retire from being a pastor. I hope I don't retire from doing a different job.
You have to be able to discern in a very real way between those things that are, like, I love this for now, and the things that are going to be forever. Like, it's good to know the difference. It's good to know the difference when you're marrying Kelly. You know, this is a lifetime thing versus, 3 years, you know.
Right.
Like,
Right.
And it's a fun, just a fun thing to find out. It's obviously difficult, but it's a fun thing to find out as you're looking around. I always was wondering as I was growing up, do I want to be a drummer? Like, I have this list of maybe career choices that I started when I was like 8 or something, and it's just long, like filmmaker, drummer, accountant, computer scientist, English professor. Um, uh, there's so many more. I wanted to be a professional skateboarder for a bit.
Huh.
They're just all the ideas that would just come to your head, like the very, very light thinking. Maybe I'll be that, maybe I'll be that, maybe I'll be that, it just kind of goes through. But then just narrowing that down is really, it's a game I'm playing right now. But I guess my realization is that, like you said, it's the YOLO age. But what stands out to me about the time we're living in is that you don't have to do one thing at a time.
Yeah,
It's
I'm right there with you,
which
man.
things to do. Did you work with Matthew, like side by side with Matthew creatively? Something I'm just curious about.
Like Salt DVD wise or anything?
Yeah, anything.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like, because him and I have done, I don't know, probably like 10 campfires together
Mm-hmm.
over the years. So like it was, us sitting down, usually on his couch, in his house, and just like mapping it out, planning it out, getting that all set. That was probably, and he did give me input for the Salt DVD too.
Yeah.
Like he wanted a section where a couple of years ago where it was like, I can't remember what he called it, but it was like bleeping out people like saying things even though they weren't swearing,
Mm-hmm.
as like a goofy thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't get around to it that year, but I ended up throwing it in for Jess
Yeah.
on the 2019 DVD because she doesn't actually swear.
Yeah.
Like we just threw it in there, and then like I mean it's kind of convincing.
It is.
Too, but yeah, she didn't actually swear in front of the camera. We just like threw it in, and Jess was like, "I didn't say that." It was meant to be unnecessary bleeping. That's what Matthew suggested.
Oh my
It was like,
goodness.
you should have a section of unnecessary bleeping, and I was like, man, that would be really funny. But then again, it's like you only get so much to put into the Salt DVD. But yeah, ended up throwing it in for Jess because it fit and was funny.
That's so interesting. Because he's had so much input in like stuff I've done at camp, and one of the things he always comes back to is like wanting to be clean and pure. So it's really funny that that unnecessary bleeping was Matthew's thing.
Uh-huh.
That's really
Well,
funny.
again, I think the thing was that it was like clean. And it's clean and ideally it's clean because nothing actually bad has happened. It's just funny that it worked out for Jess, because with Jess it just was so convincing that like
Yeah.
she actually said something bad.
It
and
really
she
looked
didn't.
like that. It
Yeah.
really did. Like you could have fooled me. I wanted to do that for, like, my initial ideas for anything DVD related were like so influenced by the 2019 DVD, and then like as I just thought about it in every waking minute, it kind of drifted towards maybe more personal plan for it. But one of my earlier ideas was for Salt Family Weekend, which of course did not happen this year. Doing like that kind of thing with Grace Bain. What are your thoughts on the summer, Grace? I'm really excited, and then it starts. Yeah, but my perception was that Matthew wouldn't have appreciated that, but I guess maybe he would have in retrospect.
It comes along with cleverness too, is like
Yeah.
like I think the reason why it was funny, and this isn't me patting myself on the back, so don't think don't think that, but why it worked with Jess was because it was kind of, and it wasn't drawn out, it wasn't long or drawn out or anything. It was just like kind of this like clever put in that Esther and I had, and I think that's the thing too, is it's like if it's just, I don't know, vulgar for vulgarity's sake is yuck. What's
Yeah.
the point? But, and I'm not saying like things need to be vulgar or risque. I'm just saying like more so like I think when there's an innocent cleverness to it, then it becomes more acceptable.
Let's record a soundbite that go to the end of this podcast. I'm gonna say like that's a good episode, and I'm gonna say like, oh, that was a good episode, and you're gonna say like yeah, that was pretty flippin' great, and I'm gonna bleep out something
Yeah,
so that, like
okay.
in context. Okay, we'll record
Yeah.
that, and then I'll wrap up the episode after that. So, that was a good that was a good episode, Jerry.
Yeah, that was pretty flippin' great.
It's gonna be so funny. All right, Jeremiah Wallander, thank you so much for being on the Backyard Barbecue podcast. It has been a pleasure. I don't think I could have possibly expected to learn as much about you as I did in this episode. This was so much fun hearing about your creative perspective and the way that you progressed from what you're doing in your early years and high school, and now the way that you're taking your creativity into your future life as a pastor, going wherever you go in this country and sharing God's love with people and using that ability to capture love that you are doing in wedding photography and sharing that love that Christ has for us with other people. So thank you for being on this podcast. It was tons of fun.
Thank you, Elliot. This was awesome. This is a great conversation.